gonna say
we were, but I forgot to change the title for the other for Twitch.
Of course you did.
Well, now I switched to the one for YouTube, but then the one for Twitch, I forget that now we're streaming on both. So
fuck Twitch.
Fuck them kids. I'm kidding.
we tried to turn a new leaf.
It just didn't last long, folks.
No. Some of us like to burn the leaves, but it's fine.
Some of us put it into edibles.
And some of us take the edibles.
I was going to say, you're pointing in the wrong direction.
There you go. Wait, do it again. Both of you. Nope. There you go. More. There. It's like that one painting.
Yep.
Touching fingertips.
Oh man. With that being said, we're gonna talk about Daredevil Born Again, episode 3. Very heartbreaking again. But there will be spoilers, so
welcome to the Nerd Archive podcast.
The little guy, Bilbo or Pippin, whatever the hell his name is.
Nintendo fans, I see a lot of people getting it, just for recording.
my name is Lewis. As always, why did it play again?
Misa thinks you got the timing a bit wrong. I don't know.
That was beautiful.
Technical difficulties?
We're going to try this again. It stopped playing on my end. Welcome to the Nerd Archive podcast. My name is Lewis, and as always, we have Lola, Yadi, and Justin. First of all, Lola, what is your shirt? And why did I think it was Yu-Gi-Oh?
It's from a band called Victims, and it's meant to look like that.
Oh, perfect. I thought I was going crazy. Yeah.
No,
I thought the edibles transferred over here.
Shirts. Touch tips with my brother.
The elbow.
The elbow tip. Did you guys see Daredevil Born Again?
Yes.
Episode 3.
Did we?
Again.
I don't know.
Again.
Born again.
And episode 4 is about to air if you're watching this live. If you're not watching this live, it aired when we were recording. So,
unfortunately.
Yeah. We need to do a watch party. We always say that, but
get it together, Disney. Come on.
Yeah, come on. It was better when it was at 3:00 in the afternoon.
Even if it's 7:00, that's still earlier.
Yeah. I think 7:00 is better because that way we can watch it before the episode starts.
It's fresh in our brains.
It's fresh. We don't get spoiled by going on YouTube.
True.
So,
I mean, you can always not click on those potential spoilery things.
Nah, fuck that.
But sometimes they're like my brother and they'll put it as a picture.
Sorry. Sorry. Also, that was a week later.
Yeah, I know.
So,
I mean, we did the same thing for Deadpool and Wolverine and got called out by a couple of people, but guess what?
That's what she's talking about.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, though. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, actually, it was more than a week later. It was several weeks later.
Yeah, I think the one that people were specifically mad about was the one that was like 2-3 weeks after the movie came out, because we talked about it a couple times.
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
Oh yeah.
Of course we did.
The one where we posted the team standing there together and Gambit was there, and that was the one.
Make sure you don't talk about it because I know it's been like 6 months, but they might still be upset about it.
If it's been 6 months, fuck you. You deserve to get spoiled.
If it was 3 weeks, fuck you. You deserve to be
Yeah.
spoiled.
Pretty much.
It's a blockbuster film for a reason.
Yo, we woke up
about
today
it.
and chose violence.
Oh my god, yes, we did.
Yep.
I know I
Oh,
did.
yeah.
Problematic
I just
all
need
day.
the popcorn here.
It's great, man. Like I'm all for pissing people off. And to that point, after we talk about episode 3 of Daredevil Born Again, spoiler warnings, folks. Because
I already put the spoiler warning there, and I made sure that when I made the which I still have to post it, but it's not spoilers. Maybe it is. Too bad. Too bad.
No,
It was last week.
We're gonna be spoilery as hell, and to hell with what anyone thinks. If you don't want to get spoiled, don't watch this episode. And so, getting back to what I was saying about being all for pissing people off.
Watch it, but next week after you watch the episode.
It is what it is. I'll watch.
Carry on.
I'll watch the upcoming episode for tonight, probably sometime tomorrow when I'm eating dinner or something like that.
I'm gonna watch it tonight, and then I'm gonna put something on our group chat.
I'll make sure to block you for the night. I have no problem doing that.
No, and the thing is, I'm gonna put the most random lie on there just to. Spider-Man showed up.
That's not too far from what could
I
happen.
know.
There's potential. There's potential there. I mean, you never really know. But like I was saying, like it's something that we should talk about. And because I've been getting reports and looking at like the numbers are in, folks. And I think Marvel Studios and thereby Disney should be worried.
Why?
We can talk about that after we go through our breakdown of episode 3.
I love what you did there, but I hate you for it. So let's carry on. Let's get this conversation going. What do you guys think of the episode? And we'll talk about what happened at the end. At the end. But yeah.
That thing.
It's gonna be a long shot. With that being said, when Matt Murdock brought in the okay, let's backtrack because we didn't talk about this in the last episode. The fight scene between Matt Murdock and the cops.
Yeah, we tried.
And I thought, yeah, but the problem with that is that when I was watching that scene, the first thing I said after the scene is over, I said, "Oh man, a suspected murder being represented by a murderer." Because I thought they were dead.
I thought so too. The way he smacked his face onto the floor, the way his neck twisted, I was like, "That man's dead. He's done."
Both dead. Both dead. But it's just, I thought they were dead, so I'm like, oh man, now he's gonna have to explain. But the fact that he beat them up, how are you going to explain that as a cop?
There's no way to out him without blowing their entire narrative up in their own faces.
But
I understand.
That, could you? I'm sorry. Hold on. Could you
go for it? I know exactly what you're going to say.
Could you imagine going to like a higher form of authority and saying the blind man beat me up? I would be so embarrassed. Yes. I would never say anything.
Yeah, that's exactly my point.
Secret is dying with me.
Like you stand in court, Your Honor, we need to remove him. It's like, why? You see all this? He did this to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, did you stand still the entire time?
Yeah. You'd never be able to live that embarrassment down.
I know.
No. It's okay. It's like playing basketball against a girl. Hear me out. It is because one side of you is telling you, I cannot guard this girl and block her because then I'm the guy that blocked the girl.
Somebody cue the Titanic music.
Or if I let that girl score, I'm the one that got scored on by a girl.
I don't know how to hold a violin. Sorry.
Obviously, it showed. Thank you.
Thank you. It needs to be sadder. It needs to feel like he's sinking into a hole because that's what he's doing right now.
It's that's only 2 seconds just to make sure we don't get copyrighted.
Yeah.
But how do you explain that?
You don't.
You know what I mean? No, you don't.
quiet.
You keep it to yourself. You fell.
Shut the
You
fuck
fell.
up about it.
Yep.
You go home.
Yep.
You ice your face. You call it a fucking day.
Yeah, you just walk away. Don't say anything ever. You're gonna bring that to your grave, unless they out him and then everyone knows he's Daredevil. So you remember those bruises that I had? That was him.
Yep.
I think he's lying. I think he could see.
Mhm.
So, but that fight, it's because he finds out that the cops are going to kill the witness.
Yep.
So he shows up first, gets him out, and then that's when the whole fight scene ensues.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the big problem with that. Now he survives. They're going to bring him to court. That whole interaction of, oh, this person cannot make it. The cops are like, this guy cannot make it to court. And they start following him as soon as he's being transported. And then he gets stopped. And what happens? His car gets stopped. They open the back of the car.
And nobody's there.
He was never there.
I have a question.
I have an
this
answer.
might be my own ignorance towards the subject, but isn't like a detective a higher ranking of officer than a police officer?
Yep.
Okay, so why is this motherfucker like just like, get out of the vehicle, asshole? Like I outrank you. Go away.
Isn't he also retired?
No, well, obviously not, because he's still, being a detective. He's still involved.
Well,
I
he's a
think-
PI.
Yeah, no, he's
okay.
a private detective, so he works for himself and he works with Matt Murdock.
So do
And they
private
keep the
detectives-
badge.
Okay, that was my next question. Do private detectives keep their or PIs keep their badges? Because he's flashing it. Obviously, it's still holds some form of power.
It's a different. Well, he's still technically law enforcement, but it's a different badge, and it's a whole new set of like certifications and things like that that we're not going to get into detail over because that would take forever and a day.
Forever. Yeah, no, that's fine. I just wanted to know because he seems very much like, oh, I'm a police officer, like I'm the be all end all, and it's like you're like the bottom of the barrel in regards to your organization. So like pipe down.
Yeah, but also they know who he has, and they're not afraid to
pretty much
take him out. Also, but they can't because he wasn't there.
Mhm.
And if he would end up dead, there was he was supposed to be carrying him, and all of a sudden he's dead. It was the cops. So there's a bunch of red tape. But he makes it to the courthouse.
Mhm.
And it's a big deal. He's about to testify. What happens?
He chickens out.
Well, I mean, it makes sense that he chickens out because he sees all of those police officers. They're just staring at him, especially several of the ones that were there were part of that corrupt group.
Mm-hmm.
He's
And
gonna get murdered anyways. That's what I don't understand. Like, So right from that perspective in this episode, he's gonna get murdered anyways. The only thing that you can do to help anything at that point, you're dead. Just consider yourself as dead. So one, say something. Two, you might buy yourself a little bit more time because as soon as you say something and somebody tries to retaliate, guess what? The first people they're gonna look at is the police.
Right.
Well, the second he implicates the police in his testimony, I think any smart judge worth their salt would immediately put him in protective custody away from everyone
and
else.
send him out somewhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, granted,
Pretty much.
we've seen movies where they find him, but I digress.
Mhm.
He chickens out. Now they don't have a defense.
Which winds up turning into, and because we got a little bit of ahead of ourselves, because at the beginning of that third episode, Matt Murdock was trying to, because pretty much they all knew, both councils knew that this guy was the White Tiger. And
Right.
so Matt Murdock spent a good amount of time trying to get that fact dismissed and not have it put out in open court. And because he didn't feel that it was relevant to the case and what have you, and he wound up succeeding in doing that. And
Right.
then we go through everything that we just talked about, and then as soon as their defense is torn to shit because the witness decides that he doesn't want to take the risk, that's when a decision has to be made.
On the fly.
Pretty much.
Mhm.
And he opens his bag and takes out a mask.
Mm-hmm.
The White Tiger's mask, and
Yep.
shows everybody. The judge is pissed.
Yep.
Wait a minute.
Uh-huh.
He's like, you both in my office.
Yep.
And he tears him a new one. Which completely understandable.
Mm-hmm.
But then he explains it, and it's like, hey, pretty much you had all these cops intimidating my witness, and we all know that he was a relevant witness and it was going to happen. And he chickened out because of all those cops. If those cops weren't there, it wouldn't have happened. So I want a fair trial. I do want to point out that I like how in between scenes, we get the BB report with the citizens, and you get both sides. There's some people that are like, oh, he's a vigilante, he should just be put away. And then there's the other. We all know that he's not going to get a fair trial because he's Puerto Rican. And if he's guilty or not guilty, the only thing they can do is give him a fair trial. And every time we get something like that, it's part of like the daily life of Hell's Kitchen, which is pretty cool. I thought that was a very, very good detail for them to have. And obviously it's going to be that whole BB report is going to be important in the narrative throughout the episode. So,
do you notice who one of the reports was from?
no.
Officer Morales.
Oh, yeah. And I was kind of, yes.
From the NYPD.
Yeah. So what she's saying is, once they get back to the court, we get the defense going, and now they have to bring in witnesses from people that the White Tiger has saved to prove that he is a person of good character, a person that is always there to help the most in need, including cops, because there are reports of cops saying, I was in trouble. I made a mistake and I was in trouble, and he came and helped me. He helped me get this person arrested, and multiple. And then he brings out a stack and starts naming officers, and one of them is Officer Morales, which a lot of people are like, well, that's not Miles Morales' dad because he's Jefferson Davis. It's like, no, but in the comic books, he changed his name to Jeff Morales. For those that are wondering, suck my dick. But
Problematic indeed.
yeah, I chose violence today. Don't give a fuck. But after all this, the jury, well, the other attorney or the DA, I would say, he's like, just because you're a good person doesn't mean that you don't make mistakes, or that you don't. A good person does bad things and a bad person does good things. Which I'm like, oh man, okay, that's a good point.
That's a
good point.
Argument.
It is a weak argument. It is a weak argument, but if there was if that little scene wouldn't have happened, the verdict would have been more like, oh, I know he's going to be acquitted. It is what it is. But with that argument, you're like, okay, the jury can go either way now. Even though it's a weak argument, it's still an argument.
Yeah, but the reason why I say it's a weak argument is because if White Tiger can have, can be a good person and do a bad thing, why can't the police officer be a good person and do a good bad thing as well? So that at that point, don't represent your client. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
It's a weak legal argument. There's nothing to base it on.
Right.
Apart from sometimes people do things. Yeah, that's why we're here.
And I completely understand your point. What I'm saying is, to me, that argument it led me to think the jury can go either way. However, what happens?
Not guilty on all counts.
Yes.
That was great. Backtracking a little bit, when Matt Murdock takes the mask off or mask out and shows everybody, they cut into the cell, and Reyes is talking to Matt Murdock and is like, you should have asked me first. And that's completely understandable, because he says that wasn't your secret to tell. And you can tell Murdoch wants to tell him. It's like he's battling inside. And I was like, yeah, it was your secret, but I have my own, and it's the same one. So he tells him, Matt Murdock tells him, you cannot be the White Tiger anymore. If you walk out not guilty,
your days as the White Tiger are over.
And right before that, when the episode starts and they're having a conversation, you hear Reyes having a heartfelt, and I was going to touch on this, a heartfelt conversation story about Puerto Rico. And Yadi, you, myself, and I have a couple other friends that posted that on their Instagram stories, that conversation. And the way that he talks about Luquillo and the beaches, how beautiful they are, and the coquis, and it's the sound of the island. Talking about it just makes me feel like it gives me goosebumps. I had to say that because at the end, there's a very important part. So he gets acquitted. He gets to walk out. Free man. It's on the news. He's a free man. They cut into the Kingpin.
Yep.
And he is talking about how that's wrong. Another vigilantes walking in the streets. That is not okay, and we're not going to let that happen. And I'm going to keep my word. We're going to get rid of the vigilantes. And it cuts into Reyes suiting up as the White Tiger. He was walking on the streets, though. Like, I would have assumed that they would have put him on the rooftop. But he's walking around. He hears a woman screaming. He goes to check it out.
He doesn't even get 5 steps.
He goes up the steps. Walks out of the alley. What happens? A person comes out of the shadows.
Puts a gun to his
Please.
head and pulls the trigger.
Gone.
Yep.
Just how the White Tiger came in, just how it went out. Quickly. We only got 1 episode. I wonder if they make that decision after he passed.
Probably.
To
No,
just
it
or
is
if-
part of the comics. In the comics,
No,
that's basically how he dies.
no, in coming out of the after his trial.
In the comics itself, is actually right out the doors. He gets gone down. But in this one, they give it a little bit of time, and he got to
Right.
run
Well-
a little bit. But yeah,
I'm sure the thing is, like, I'm sure the showrunners wanted to do maybe a bit more before, and maybe they had plans before, because with him dying, with the actor dying, and then of course the writer's strike basically shutting everything down, they had to kind of step back and rethink, okay, what do we want to do, and what have you. And so I think that decision was ultimately made, just, okay, we're going to go and just, we're going to rework with what we have and make it. And like you said, it's basically about as close to the comics as you can get.
yeah,
Right.
they're going pretty close to it. So
Yeah.
that's why I don't think they had plans to bring him back
Mm.
after that. But there
yeah.
is also other White Tigers. It's not only him, so it
Mm.
gets passed along
Well,
to somebody
right.
else,
Like his
that's,
sister is
next.
one. His niece is another one, which
Yeah.
they talked about his sister, but they
Mhm.
showed his niece. So that's very important. I hadn't been looking at the comments, but I'll go back to the comments in a second. As soon as that person walks out, shoots him in the head, falls dead, the person starts walking to the camera.
Mm-hmm.
And what do we see?
The Punisher
Punisher.
logo.
So, 2 theories. Either the Punisher is under contract with Kingpin for some reason, or is someone playing as the Punisher to think that was him, to create conflict
I
between
think
vigilantes.
that's the case. I think that
Somebody masquerading as the Punisher.
I think it's a copycat Punisher, and I think Kingpin may have the Punisher. I don't know if you've noticed, but the more they show Kingpin, the more they show like he's got scratches on his face, his knuckles are bruised. He's clearly fighting somebody. Like he's still winning, but he's clearly like or beating somebody up. So I think he may have
He has somebody captured.
somebody captured, and I think
More
that
than
they
likely.
Punisher, and I think that's why the copycat stuff. And it would make sense if he also has the police under his belt. It just makes sense to me.
And those police have the tattoo of the skull too.
tattoos,
Yep.
yes,
Which
that's my
There's-
theory.
there's also conflict between the commissioner and Kingpin, because the commissioner knows who Kingpin is.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, Kingpin shows his cards, and he showed that he has not changed. He's just
But
doing
that-
it differently.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing, though. He never shows all of his cards, and I think
Oh, yeah.
one
Right.
of his cards, it's that he already has the police. He doesn't have the commissioner, but he already has the police.
Oh
Right.
yeah, no, he's definitely playing on their sympathies, specifically
Mhm.
in this, especially in this episode. And then like he's playing also on the people's sympathies and what they want and trying to turn around the streets of New York and clean it up and what have you. And then of course him still being mostly the same guy that he always was, and then basically showing enough of his hand to get what he wants and basically keep people in line.
Yes.
Which it's old school Kingpin for you. And I do want to point out that I do love the conversation that Kingpin and Matt Murdock had in the
Diner.
diner. Matt Murdock says, "Oh, if you lost a lot, you've lost some weight. Your steps are lighter." So it's because he can tell who it is because of his powers. By just his steps, he can tell this is Kingpin.
Mhm.
And I just thought that was a very nice detail that they brought in, because we can all tell that he looks lighter,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just like I said, it's a nice detail.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you can tell that he definitely looks different from the way he did in the Netflix series, and that's of course being because Vincent D'Onofrio himself has lost a lot of weight, and so they had to put prosthetics and all that stuff on him to make him look as close as he did to the way he did in the old series.
Right.
And so of course they had to make mention of that. Hey, you look like you've lost weight.
So
yeah,
that's fun. Great episode. However, I brought up the whole conversation about Puerto Rico because as soon as the credits rolled, we hear the coqui and we hear the rainforest, the rain falling. It's just
such a nice detail.
Yeah, it was like, because the show itself, this season is in memory of the actor that played White Tiger. So having that at the end in the credits was a very nice detail from Marvel. So I have to give it to them for that, because they didn't have to do that. You know what I mean? So
But
that was.
they did it well.
Oh yeah, because it was very. I almost did too. It was very subtle, but it was.
Yes.
It was great.
Well, it's funny because I had told Trey, shut up, stop making fun of me. I had told Trey earlier in the day that I felt homesick. And then we watched that episode, and then the cookies came on, and I was like,
I completely understand.
yeah.
I get it.
And then he made fun of me like he is now.
Is he watching?
Yes.
You're a pussy. Carry on. Oh, I heard him laugh. Because it's a little bit delayed on the on the stream. Yeah. You guys have anything else in this episode?
No.
No. Do you guys watch the season finale of Invincible?
No.
Yes.
Okay, good. I listen. Very, very quick. I'm bringing it up because Chris Yop on the in the comments mentioned it. It's the only thing that is everywhere, like right now on YouTube, TikTok, anywhere I go on, it's on there. So even if I didn't watch it, I know exactly what happened. Dude, Conquest is a machine, but Invincible is the fight and the way it ended
Mm-hmm.
and what happened to Eve, which I'm very, very happy. Spoiler alert again. If you haven't watched it, pause it right here. I thought Eve was dead.
For a second, yes.
Yeah.
Well, for
And
those,
then they explain.
well, yeah. And for those of that read the comics, you pretty much know where this is going, and so this is basically a play on that.
Right. So apparently she has a chip or some sort of thing, programming that keeps her from using her powers fully. Unless something catastrophic happens,
Mhm.
that it overwrites the programming on purpose, make sure that she doesn't die.
Well, it's not just that, because like you said, it's a mental block that basically they programmed into her to limit her powers, which is why like she can screw around with the atomic structure of a lot of things, but she can't do it with living beings.
Including herself.
Because of that, because of those mental blocks. And
Right.
so it happens several times in the comics, spoiler alerts folks, that whenever something catastrophic happens with her or she dies, that her full power kicks in and completely regenerates her.
Which is pretty much what the Dark Phoenix is at the end of the day. It's like a play on that.
Yeah, to a
Similar,
point.
yeah.
So what we want to say is right now on Earth, she's the strongest hero or human on Earth, because she can probably destroy Invincible in like a second. She could have done the same thing to Conquest, but she didn't.
Well, I mean, but therein lies the point with Viltrumites, is how they're written is the older they get, the stronger they become. So he did some good damage to Conquest, but it still wasn't enough. And so
Right.
it bought Invincible time to kind of finish the job. And so at this point, yes, in terms of power scaling, she's stronger than Mark, but that won't be the case for long. Because in the
Right.
comics, he does eventually get a lot stronger. And then of course you have Nolan, he's significantly stronger. And like there's a bunch of characters and like I think what is it? Alan the Alien. The way he works, his character is basically written like sort of like a Saiyan from Dragon Ball Z. He gets the shit beat out of him, and then he comes back stronger.
Yep. The closer he gets to death, he gets a power up when he recovers.
And but nobody else knew that, and that's how he was able to infiltrate the Viltrumite prison ship to get Nolan out.
Yep.
He faked getting beat up and captured, and then if you've seen the rest of the newest season, then yeah, you pretty much know that he was able to get them out. They were able to force their way through. But yeah, no, those last couple of episodes, crazy. And I think I kind of wish they had gone a bit longer on this particular one, because what they did was like it's a shortened version of the Invincible War arc where what's his name brings in Invincibles from every other universe to try and kill the main Invincible.
Yeah. I was watching a video about that, and that looked interesting.
Oh yeah.
That looked very interesting. And I, correct me if I'm wrong, they were brought in, but they weren't bad. They were just told that this one was rogued. And
a lot of them were, but then of course a lot of them were like not so much, not really good in a sense, but they weren't really willingly. Not all of them were like willingly following Angstrom. Angstrom Levy. I just remembered the character's name. They were manipulated by him by saying, "Hey, I'll give you everything you want, and all this stuff." And so he manipulated each one based on what they wanted, and that's how he was able to get them all to come over here and just try and kill
Mark.
To kill Mark.
So during the fight, we see Mark's bones just slowly, arm broken, leg broken, everything. Towards the final scene, Mark throws a punch, and Conquest still has some in him. Grabs the fist, and crushes it, and breaks his arm again. So now he has no arms to fight with. What does he do? He headbutts him to the point where he keeps headbutting him till he kills him. Like the pain inflicted on both parties just doing that. It's insane. It's insane. And in the comic books, Conquest, the way he kills Eve is by putting his hand through her abdomen.
Mm-hmm.
And they did not shy away from this in the show either.
Oh no.
So this Invincible, especially in scenes like these, the first episode, insane. This just starts with a very strong. But when you watch Justice League War and War Apocalypse, it's the same thing. If you guys haven't seen that, the fight scenes are gruesome.
Especially in the first half of Apocalypse War. Crazy shit.
Yeah. And then when they show Wonder Woman, she has a bionic arm because in the first movie her arm gets completely cut off. It's just it's just insane. But Invincible, we're in a good time for these shows. It's a good era, I have to say.
Oh yeah. Oh, and the man they got to voice Conquest.
Oh,
Jeffrey
Lola,
Dean Morgan.
Lola, did you watch The Walking Dead? No? Okay. Jeffrey D. Morgan, Daddy Winchester, he's in The Walking Dead. He has a scene that made a lot of the fans cry because he beat to pulp with a bat a character. That character is none other. The actor is the same one that plays Mark in Invincible. So they face each other again.
Mm-hmm.
And I will die on this. I swear that in that meeting, Homeboy said, "Let me do this. I want to be able to bash his head."
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So that was, to me, like, I wasn't an Invincible fan, but I will be watching this from the beginning again because I want to see everything that led to this. Because this scene, this episode just got me like, oh, I need to watch this. Yeah. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but every time that a season finale for Invincible, he ends up in a hospital. That's literally the last episode. It's him in the hospital at some point.
Yep.
He got beat up by Viltrumite.
Pretty much. and he made the vow. I guess he finally saw what his little brother was trying to show him, because like he was thinking for the longest time, he was thinking like a human. He didn't want to he didn't want to kill anybody. In several instances he thought he did, but then of course you have those characters coming right back. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
And
It's like Supernatural. Over and over.
And so he makes that vow right there with his brother in that hospital room. It's like the next time that he faces them, he's going to kill them. And what's funny is he doesn't even realize that Conquest isn't dead.
Yeah.
Like his if when you watch that episode and you see the way Conquest looks after that fight is over, like his face is literally just fucking flattened. And you think, well, this guy's got to be dead. No. They come back from some of the craziest shit. And wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And not only he's alive, but he is being held captive by what I think is the main villain of the show, which is the same guy that runs the team that they all work for.
Mhm.
So he's going to be mad.
He never learns.
Nope. No.
And what's funny is he was the exact same way, because they show you like flashbacks of his like earlier days when he first started working for the agency and whatnot. And it's like he was the same, like he was a well-meaning, like he wanted to do things the right way, and his predecessor basically was the way he is now. And basically he basically became that same person, and then
Right.
in some cases even worse.
Yeah.
Because some of the worst enemies that you see, like he winds up in some capacity exploiting or employing those same people. It's crazy.
That's insane.
Mhm.
All right.
But, so if you haven't, and I will say this, if you have not watched Invincible yet, you should. It's a really, really good series. Gruesome as shit. Certain, like some scenes, the animation isn't really the best. There was one scene, I think in the last episode, either it was the last episode or the second to last episode, the funeral scene, where like the animation wasn't the best, and they were using like the default poses for a lot of the characters in that scene. Whereas like in the comics, you can see like the comics seem to have shown more emotion in that moment than the show, which I thought was weird. And so that
in
was
the
like
show, they were just standing there.
Yeah. It was weird, and that was a common complaint that a lot of people had for that episode in particular.
But I think they made up with the fight scene between Conquest and Mark. I mean, all the budget went to that.
As much as they've done in this series so far, I think I honestly think the positives far outweigh a lot of the negatives. But
agreed.
There's still a long ways to go.
Oh yeah. Okay. That was it. It's just touching on that.
Mm.
You mentioned something in the beginning of the episode. Now I want to hear about it.
Oh yeah.
So the numbers are in, not just for because Disney doesn't regularly release their viewership numbers, and you don't see a lot of that until they do. And they did for Daredevil Born Again. So the numbers are in, and they're not really that good. The first 5 days for the 2-episode premiere of Daredevil Born Again got 7.5 million views.
Damn.
and that is not. It's not good. And what's weird is like, yeah, it's guaranteed a second season because they greenlit a second season before they even knew how this first season was going to do. So they pretty much guaranteed that we're going to see it through to the end, regardless of how well this series does. It's funny is it was outperformed. It did half the numbers that Ahsoka did, which was like 14 million in the same time frame, same number of episodes released for a 2-episode premiere. It did, I think, 3 million less than The Acolyte, which is probably the worst thing Star Wars has ever put out. And I look at this and I say to myself, and there's a lot of people out there that are saying the same thing, that Marvel Studios and by the same token, Disney needs to be worried because this isn't bringing in new subscribers. It's a good series so far. Not great, but good. And they're salvaging, because we talked about this last week. They had to do a lot of reworking for this series, and they used the writer strike in that which stopped everything as an excuse to kind of look and retool things and whatnot, and kind of turn things around and bring more of the old actors from the Netflix series back. And not just that, but even Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio were very vocal about this, as they did not like the direction that they were initially going with the show pre-strike. And so they were like, we really don't like where this is going. And so taking that into account, the new showrunners and whatnot, so they had to, a lot of people thought that they should have just canned the whole thing and started over. But they weren't permitted to do that because unions fuck everything up in that sense. And I don't like that. And so they had to kind of work with what they had, rework what they could. And so a lot of people were saying, some of the people that I've read that have seen the entirety of the first season say that the show actually starts to get good around episode 6. Because that's when the current showrunner he doesn't have to worry about any of the old stuff and having to salvage what he can, and is able to basically go in the direction that he wants to go.
So what you're saying is we're only going to get 3 episodes that are good.
At this point, there's a lot of people that are saying this, but the thing is, I'm hoping, because this is the point that I'm kind of trying to make, is I don't, even if the series gets really good and the quality takes a huge step up going into like episode 5 and 6 going onwards, I'm not sure if that's going to bring in any new viewers, because this is the problem that I've been having, and that I've been seeing with a lot of the stuff that Disney Marvel and Disney Star Wars has been putting out, is you've been making it a point to drive away the longtime Star Wars fans, the longtime comic book readers that were invested in this franchise from the beginning, that you had. Because that's the thing, though. You had a built-in audience with these properties, and it didn't start off doing crazy numbers, but you were building towards something bigger, and that huge crescendo that they had with Endgame did insane numbers. But then everything they've had after that has just kind of started falling off, and they've been bleeding Disney Plus subscribers to the point where it's like they haven't put out anything thus far that I've seen that is bringing any of these people back. And it's to the point where, oh, this is a good show. And in my view, thus far, and from a lot of what I've been reading, it's the best thing Daredevil Born Again so far is the best Disney Plus show that they've put out thus is like so far, period. But your longtime fans that got tired of being pushed out and just not getting what they're looking for as far as what Marvel Studios has been doing, they're just not coming back. It's like, okay, there's this. Okay, I don't care because I'm not like this one show. I'm not coming back.
They're not going to resubscribe and start paying monthly if for those people that actually left and canceled for just one show.
Pretty much.
Like, and it makes total sense. It's just
the only way, and this is why they need, and this is endemic of, I think, Hollywood as a whole, that have just been putting out trash for the most part. You get those movies every once in a while that do good numbers. Case in point, Spider-Man, No Way Home, Deadpool and Wolverine. Like, obviously, yeah, they drew huge numbers, sure. But you can't just rely on one good movie every once in a while. It's not going to work. And so when you're doing all this shit to, from what I've seen, actively push away these people that are heavily invested in these franchises, it's just it's not going to work. Their only hope at this point is if Daredevil Born Again pulls an Andor, because the only reason that Andor got a second season in the first place is because word of mouth and word of mouth and critical acclaim got the viewership up after the fact. And the viewership kept increasing with each episode that came out. The first 3 episodes, and I understand why you haven't watched or haven't finished watching the first season yet, because the first 3 episodes were slow. It took a while to get going, but the episodes after that are actually where it gets really, really good. And that's where a lot of people started really tuning into and watching more and more of it. And then they tuned into the whole thing after the fact. And that's how they were able to get that. They're hoping that this series could do the same thing, but I'm not sure. And if this series doesn't make the kind of numbers that it should make, then I'm worried for a lot of the projects that are coming out after, because this could very well affect Thunderbolts, and it could also affect Fantastic Four First Steps, because it's like you're looking at, and Fantastic Four is one of Marvel's best franchises. But if your comic book fans don't give a shit, and a lot of them aren't going to give a shit because a lot of those comic book fans don't like my brain. What the fuck is his name? Pedro Pascal. A lot of them don't like him specifically, so I'm not sure how well that's going to play out.
What you're telling me is that
wrong.
the fantastic life of Pedro Pascal and his friends is not well received. I get it.
They would be wrong. They are mistaken. That's okay. We'll make mistakes.
Well,
But
see, it's more than just that, though, because like I said, when you have Disney making these dumb decisions that are basically going against what, and like I said, and I said this before, and it drives this point home. You have this huge plethora of characters and a built-in fan base that you had going into this, and people that wanted to see these characters put in live action. But then when you were riding on this insane high after the end of Phase 3, and then you basically just dove it off a fucking cliff after that, and you basically forced all of these longtime fans out with the decisions that you've made. You can't expect them to come back for a lot of this stuff. Even with Fantastic Four, it could be a great movie, but if people have stopped caring because they're tired of the bullshit, then you're not going to get the kind of numbers that you want. And this could also very well affect the next 2 Avengers movies, granted, I still think Avengers Doomsday is going to draw. It'll probably draw close to $1 billion, and part of that is because they brought back the Russo brothers, and because their track record with Marvel movies is pretty good. They've done a damn good job with those,
Right.
but they haven't done nearly as well outside of the MCU as they have inside. So it's tough to say at this point. And like another point that I didn't mention yet is Captain America: Brave New World. It started off decent as far as box office draw, but it fell hard second week, and it looks like at this point it's not even going to break even.
And it is a good movie.
It is a good movie, yeah.
It's just, people not wanting to see a movie because of the change of a character, which if they would have seen the shows, they would have understand why Captain America now is a darker skinned person,
And it's a lot more than that. I don't really want to get too heavily into this because we're drawing on time at this point, but there's a lot of other decisions that were made that, like I said, longtime comic book fans just didn't agree with, and like certain comic book stories that never should have made it into live action and what have you. And hell, even comic books now are starting to take a nosedive. Like certain comic books are doing reasonably well while others are doing bad, and yet you have these people at the heads of Marvel that are saying, no, we want to push these comics even though they're not selling well at all. They're selling like shit. And yet, case in point, some of the best-selling comic books of last year, I think 9 or 10 out of like the top 20 were issues of Ultimate Spider-Man. And fucking Amazing Spider-Man, with a lot of the new decisions and new directions that they were going with that particular version of the character, were nowhere near, weren't even on that list.
A lot is changing, and a lot of people don't like change. So let's hope that the numbers start thriving, so we don't lose the superhero genre, because it's gonna happen.
My opinion, you want to change those numbers, and you want those numbers to go back up. Go back to what you had. Go back to what made you money in the first place. Stop trying to change this to mesh with this modern sensibility and the modern audience, because you're catering to a very small niche subsection of your audience that more often than not don't even buy comics.
Right.
You're pandering to a specific audience that, or a specific subset of people that rarely buy these comics, just to appease them, and you're pissing off your long-standing audience that just aren't willing to spend their money on this.
We'll see on the next episode. All right. So do you guys have anything else?
Mm-hmm.
No? All right. Well, we have reached the end of the episode. This was the Nerd Archive podcast. If you want to find us on all of our social media, make sure you do what?
What do they do? I don't know.
Click all the things.
You heard it here. Just down below. You heard it here. You heard the man, or the tiny version of the man. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week. Deuces.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, you gotta give him that huck too and spit on that thing.